With a little over 5 weeks to go until the trade deadline, what are the Mariners' biggest needs? We'll answer that and more coming up here on Mailbag Monday. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, June 23rd, 2025. This is Teddy Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, you can check out our Patreon. All you have to do to check that out is click the link in the description of this episode. It's Mailbag Monday, the show where we answer your Mariners questions following a big series win at Wrigley Field for the M's this weekend. Distraught wants to know, how would you rank the Mariners' needs at the trade deadline? I'd like them to find upgrades at first base, third base, a high leverage reliever, a veteran starter, and another mid-leverage option, all in that order. What would you change? Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd change a ton. To be honest with you, so the answer is third base. Like, that is where you would find the biggest improvement over what you currently have right now.
Yes.
But it's also the position you're least likely to find a serious upgrade at, because we've talked about this all winter and now all summer. There's just not a lot of great third basemen out there. There really isn't. So, and I guess you could trade for like a shortstop or a second baseman and ask them to play third. So maybe that still works. But I think third base would be your number one priority. But again, it's easier said than done. So after that, I think the spot you're most likely to find some kind of upgrade is first base. There's always going to be some pretty good first basemen available. Corner guys are usually available at the deadline, and they're usually cheaper than one might think, although not as cheap as some people tend to think. So, but there are some rental options that we've talked a lot about at first base that make a lot of sense. So I do think the bat still has to be priority one, and ideally it's a corner infielder. But I think you should be chasing that third baseman, which again is why somebody like Gino still makes so much sense to me. So yeah, corner infield bat is probably number one. High leverage relievers, a close second. And then after that, it's kind of like a second bat is actually pretty important. And I suppose if you acquired a high leverage reliever, then your middle relief core would also just get better because you'd push somebody down into those. I mean, probably Vargas, I guess, would become a middle guy for you more than he is right now. So that might take care of itself. The veteran starter is like, yeah, if I can go get a rental and, get it at a good price, like when I got Anderson for Carter Benz, then yeah, I think that's fine to go do. But I don't want to, pump a bunch of resources into an older guy with a couple years of club control left, who's making some money. Like I don't want to put resources there. So it's really like Andrew Heaney is kind of the guy there that I like. Plus, gives you a lefty out of this rotation, which you haven't had in a while. So yeah, I think I'd go corner infield bat with a strong preference towards third base, knowing it'll probably be a first baseman. High leverage reliever second. Maybe like a role player, like an offensive role player, like a solid, platoon batter or something like that. Might be actually third. And then I'd go middle reliever and then veteran starter. And veteran starter could be higher. Again, it's just like I don't want to trade Harry Ford for Sonny Gray, even though Sonny Gray would be really good and help you a lot. But he's got 2 years and like $50 million left on the contract. And I'd rather go trade, Tyler Locklear for 2 months of Andrew Heaney. So
right. Yeah. If they think Heaney is better than Hancock and Evans, then I don't think that's going to cost a ton, so that would be higher than the mid leverage reliever for me. But otherwise, I think our lists would be exactly the same. Our rankings would be exactly the same. The high leverage reliever thing is pretty high up there for me, though. It's definitely not as high as the need for a bat, right? Because this team just desperately needs offense. But with the inconsistencies of this rotation and how, like one turn through the rotation, they're able to get deep into games, and then the next turn through the rotation, they're all kind of just going 4 or 5. I think this team could really use another high leverage option out of the bullpen as the season winds down, because there's probably going to be a lot of times where you're going to have to use Munoz on back-to-back days, Brash on back-to-back days, Spire on back-to-back days. So to have another guy who could kind of fill in those gaps when, Munoz needs a blow or Brash needs a blow, I think that would be massive. Third base is by far the area you're going to add the most impact at, if you can add one. It's just, I don't think that's super realistic given how limited the options are going to be. There might not be any options, if we're honest, that are so significantly better than what you're rolling out now, with how, limited Ben Williamson has been. Because at that point we might be talking about like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, right? And it's like, how much better is he than Ben Williamson? He is better than Ben Williamson, but he's not significantly better.
I mean, he's not like,
he's a very similar idea,
right? It's like, well, would you rather have Ben Williamson and keep, like your number 9, number 10 prospect, or would you rather have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa? Like, honestly, you might swap Williamson for Kiner-Falefa, although with Brian Hayes, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But
yeah, honestly, if we're talking about someone like Kiner-Falefa, I'd be more so comparing him to the spot that you're giving to like Dylan Moore right now, or Miles Mastrobuoni. Like, is he an upgrade over one of those guys?
Yeah. Just going to throw this name out there because it didn't really get mentioned, but if you can upgrade the bench, and part of that would be if you can upgrade your starting lineup, then your bench would probably get better because you'd have a starter. But if you were specifically looking to upgrade the bench, maybe give it a little something it doesn't have right now, Rob Refsnyder out of Boston would be a pretty interesting guy who just nukes lefties. And with the way Dylan Moore's playing right now, I don't know if you can trust him to fulfill that role down the stretch, but we'll see. But I still think the bat is the primary, and then the high leverage. And again, it doesn't have to be like a Ryan Helsley. But you need a guy that you can reasonably trust to go out there and pitch, the 8th or runners on 2nd and 3rd with one out in the 7th, and he can get the strikeout for you. You need a guy like that. And
at the very least, another mid to high leverage guy like a Carlos Vargas.
Yeah. And I think, we're kind of describing the deadline the Mariners had last year.
Right.
And if they do that again, that would be a really good deadline. Obviously different names, but yeah.
And we actually have a question kind of tied to that. Colin wants to know, if the Mariners copied their trade deadline from last year, who would be the comparable players acquired at the deadline? 2 bats and 2 relievers, and would this even be enough?
Okay, it's a fun question.
Yeah.
Let's take like the club control out of it. Let's just try and find like,
impact.
Yeah, because similar impact.
Because like, to me, like the closest name to Randy Arozarena that popped in my head, and it's not even a great comp, this is including club control and all that, was Jarren Duran. Duran's worse than Randy was at the time that you acquired him last year, despite all of his struggles last year in Tampa. Duran has 3.5 years left of club control, whereas Randy had 2. So that's not a great comparison, but that was the first name that popped in my mind.
Yeah, so you're kind of looking for a guy who, like, in a good lineup should hit 5th or 6th. You're looking for kind of a veteran, like solid hitter in Justin Turner. Then you're kind of looking for the mid-high leverage guy like Garcia, and then just the pure middle guy like Chargois. Like, those are the 4. So if you're looking for like similar impact, I think you could make an argument that Chino would have a very similar impact to this lineup as Randy did last year. It just brings some legitimacy to it. Plays the position you desperately need to have filled. Last year, the Mariners' last corner outfield spot was a mess, and they kind of needed DH2, and so they brought in Randy. So I think Gino's similar in impact. In terms of like club control, maybe this is where Vinny Pasquantino comes into play a little bit. So,
Yeah.
And then you kind of have like the veteran, just steady, like the steadying force. I still think that's Andrew McCutchen.
It's Kutch, and maybe Carlos Santana if the
Maybe.
Guardians are willing to trade him eventually.
Right. I mean, hilariously, this year's Carlos Santana might be Carlos Santana, but
Yeah.
relievers.
It could be a bunch of different guys. Kyle Finnegan was a name that popped up in my head.
I think that's
because
about right.
he's another rental reliever like Jimmy Garcia was.
Mhm.
If you're just kind of looking more like more of a 1-to-1 comparison in terms of just overall production to Jimmy Garcia, maybe it's more so someone like Trevor McGill.
Maybe a David Bednar.
I think Bednar is going to get it pretty expensive though. So, but yeah. So, and then like the JT Chargois of the deadline can be literally
anybody.
Pick a guy, pick a fringe mid-leverage reliever.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that the Chargois thing's not important, because the Mariners, you kind of look at like, hey, what do the Mariners have in their bullpen? Like in the minors right now, like they don't have a JT Chargois in them, which is unfortunate.
No, like is there someone out there that's better than Zach Pop and Trent Thornton?
Yeah,
probably.
Sure,
yeah, and they should probably go look to add one of those guys. But
like literally, the Mariners have done it the last 3 years. They added Trent Thornton at the middle of a deadline. Yep. He's been a fine middle guy this year, notwithstanding. They did it with Chargois. He was pretty good for you last year. That's fine. They did it with Bizzardo, same thing, and he's been really good for you, especially the last 30 appearances or so, dating back to the last year. So they find guys like that, fine, whatever. But yeah, the big three. I think you're probably, if you could do something like Gino, Kutch, and like Finnegan, and then you go and you find your Chargois, I think that's pretty close to the impact you had last year.
Yeah.
That you added last year. And I think at that point, Gino's your third baseman, McCutchen's, DHing mostly against lefties, that veteran leadership that Turner brought in. And if he gets hot, you could still play him against righties like Turner. And then, you get Finnegan, and you push Vargas down to a more fourth, fifth guy in your bullpen type of role. I think that would enough for what? Like enough to make you a real threat to make the playoffs and maybe even make a deep run? Sure. Yeah, if you stay healthy enough, I think that would.
All right, we are going to answer more of your questions here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk or on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. For instant reactions following every Mariners game, be sure to tune in to the Mariners postcast with Anderson Hurst and Christopher Crawford, available on both the Locked On Mariners YouTube and podcast feeds. Before we get back into your questions here on Mailbag Monday, I wanted to give you an update on our Feeding America fundraiser. We are now at $6,296 raised. Thank you so much. Let's go over these last few donations that we missed over the course of the weekend. Dwight came through with $50, Marty with $54. I wonder why you picked that number. Anonymous with $10, Wayne with $25, Jordan with $50, and says Donovan Solano's second half redemption tour. I'm here for it. That's right. Tara with $30, Anonymous with $10, Anonymous with $40, Hamish with $10, and $20 from Anonymous. Thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate it. So Colby, it's spiel time.
Mm-hmm. Well, as the Mariners' bats are heating up, so too is the weather.
Ooh.
Which means it's summer. And
What?
unfortunately, when we get to summer, a lot of children lose access to the one meal they are guaranteed a day because they're not going to school. 1 in 5 children suffer food insecurity in our country, and 50 million Americans do not know where their next meal is coming from. That's what makes Feeding America so great. They're a fantastic organization that works with wholesalers and farmers directly to buy food in bulk. And for every dollar they raise, they can create, at minimum, 10 meals from every dollar. And it's just a fantastic organization. So Ty and I have partnered with them in the past. A couple years ago, we raised $15,000 for them. Right now, we're approaching 6,300. So that's great to see. But if you guys want to be like the Mariners bat, who scored 30 runs, by the way, this weekend, maybe $30 is a good donation. And if you do donate $30, you fed 300 people. That is why we like partnering with Feeding America. It's incredible value. It's bang for your buck. $1 actually goes a long way with them. So we partnered with them again. You're going to see how much money we can raise between now and the All-Star break. If you guys don't have the funds right now, but you want to help out, that's totally fine. You can still do that. If you hit the subscribe button here on our YouTube channel, Ty and I are donating 10 cents for every new subscriber we get between the start of this and the All-Star break. And then also you guys can still share the link on your social media pages or with your friends or your family or whatever. And we can try to get this thing to grow and get as many eyes on this as possible. Right now, again, you guys have raised 62,000 meals right now and some change, which is fantastic. That's not counting the new subscriber count either, which I think is right now adding about 130 meals, give or take. Just from people clicking buttons. So it really is a good cause. It's fun to see the tracker go up. We've blown past our goal already. I don't know. Maybe we have to change the goal to 10K. I don't know. We'll see. But we still have a couple weeks left, guys. Let's finish strong here. And, the Mariners scored 30 runs this weekend. Cal Raleigh has 31 home runs. I feel like maybe those are both pretty good numbers to hit for a donation if you're looking. And again, if you can't donate that much, any amount really does help. And you've already donated, help out by spreading the word and by sharing the link. And thank you to all who are planning to, and everybody who subscribed and everybody who shared the link with their friends and their family. Every dollar really does help, and every dollar feeds 10 people who desperately need to be fed.
Thanks, guys. Let's keep it up. All right, let's get back into your questions. Max wants to know, are you seeing anything from Julio this month or just in the last few weeks that has you optimistic that he's about to go on one of his summer runs? Are there any numbers to back it up? Not really. Yeah, so right now, in the month of June, Julio has 3 barrels in total. His average launch angle is 7.2 degrees. And his hard hit rate is just 39%.
Yep.
So yeah, in terms of like the underlying numbers, there isn't really a lot that we're seeing here in the month of June that makes you go, yep, he's about to break out.
But there rarely is. Like usually these Julio,
it just kind of happens.
They just happen one day, and you just look up, you're like,
yeah.
Like Julio will hit a home run, you're like, oh, that's his first home run in like 25 days, and then he'll hit one 2 days later, and then all of a sudden he'll have 2 in a game, and you look up like 3 weeks later, and you're like, oh, Julio's over 25 homers again, and so. He's slugging 600 over his last 15 games. It usually just kind of happens.
Yeah.
There was no indication that the crazy August he went on was going to happen last year. And honestly, 2 years ago, and even last year, like he was actually really good from about the All-Star break forward, but people didn't realize how good he was until after he came back from the injury. So, these things just kind of happen with Julio. There's really not like he's starting to drive the ball to the opposite field more. Oh, he's hitting some doubles down the line. That's a good sign that things are about to happen. They just kind of do with Julio. Like, I think we know that at some point Julio will, even if it's only for a week, like he will explode and he will have one of those big weeks. And we know with Julio that a big week can easily turn into a big month or a big 6 weeks or whatever. He's done it pretty much every year of his entire career. So I think you just kind of bank on that happening again. But in terms of like, is there any sign that might be close to happening? No, but it doesn't mean that it's not close. Like it just, we're 4 years in or 3.5 years into Julio right now. kind of is who he's always been. Although, he's still finding a way to contribute offensively. It's just not the way you want. You would trade 20 points of this batting average for 20, 30 points in slug pretty easily.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing the start of 2024 again happen for Julio, just in the middle of the year right now. Like, he's hitting for average. He's not hitting for any power, though. In the month of June, he's slashing 278, 313, 354. That on-base percentage needs to be higher. That slugging percentage needs to be much, much, much higher.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you're not going to slug for a month, you need to get on base more than 31% of the time.
Yeah.
Which means, either he needs to hit for higher average, and asking somebody to hit better than 280 in today's game is asking a lot, or you need to draw more walks. And Julio is being very aggressive. He's swinging at the first pitch pretty much every time he goes up there. So the walk numbers are, of course, going to be down.
But he's also striking out a fair amount this month, too. Like, he's striking out 24% of the time compared to a 3.6% walk rate.
It's pretty funny that, like, any time in the last, his entire career, like, Julio striking out 24% of the time in a month, we'd be like, oh, so, he's kept the strikeouts under control a little bit. But yeah,
it's just when you see that walk, when you see it compared to that walk rate, that disparity is massive.
If Julio had like a 7-8% walk rate, just league average right now,
I wouldn't make as much of a deal about it.
No, the power's coming, and he's getting on base and he's getting his hits. Like, he'll be fine. But the walks aren't there. And again, part of that is the approach. So you're kind of in this weird area right now where Julio's kind of trying to, I would say he's surviving at the plate right now. He's not thriving. And we know at some point he almost certainly will. I mean, he has for at least about a month every year of his career, sometime in the summer. So we'll see if that continues this year, but I think it probably will. Just we won't know when or why it happens.
All right, we have a few more of your questions to go over here in just a moment, but first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. I mean, you're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's LOCKEDON to get started. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. It is Mailbag Monday, the show where we answer your Mariners questions. Speaking of, let's get back into them. Heat Miser wants to know, will Donovan Solano continue to bend the time-space continuum until he reaches his inevitable 280 average? Absolutely. Yeah, he's looked better for about a month now, or at least like 3 weeks. It seems like he's kind of found his groove. Listening to Angie Mentink talk about him on the broadcast yesterday, it just sounds like he hasn't really changed much. He's just kind of stayed the course, and now things are working out for him. And he's looked a lot more like the hitter that we thought the Mariners were requiring this offseason. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that yesterday is going to be the only time we see Donovan Solano have a multi-homer game in a Mariners uniform. Would love to be proven wrong on that.
Ty doesn't believe in the Solano revenge series against the Twins.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, you're going to see multi-hit games like we saw over the course of the weekend. It's more often than not going to be like 3 singles, but hey, that still helps getting traffic on the base pass or coming in through with a big hit with a runner in scoring position, whatever. Like, that's what Solano can do. And we're starting to see more of that. And his numbers are already kind of starting to stabilize. I think he's up to a 257 average after the weekend, 295 on base percentage, which still that needs to go higher and higher. But overall, 93 WRC plus. He's been around, a 100 to 115 over the last few years. So he's on that trajectory to getting back to that point. And if he has another good series here in Minnesota, then he might get there by the time they're out of Minnesota. So the other big thing here too is that they're starting to use him against righties, and he's been way better against righties this year than he's been against lefties. He's 13 for 38 against righties so far in 2025, which is obviously a small sample, but it's considerably better than what he has done against left-handed pitchers this year. And again, I have said this time and time again over the last few months. There was absolutely no reason whatsoever for Donovan Solano to be treated as a weak side platoon bat. None whatsoever. And that's exactly how the Mariners used him along with Rowdy Tellez. And I think that he suffered because of it. But there was nothing in his profile, especially since he broke out in 2019, that said this guy needs to be a weak side platoon bat. And so now you're seeing him hit against more righties now that Rowdy Tellez is out of the picture. And boom, it didn't take long for the Mariners to reap the rewards of them actually trying him against some righties. So I think for now, again, they don't really have an internal option that's better than Donovan Solano to be an everyday first baseman at the moment. So let him be the everyday first baseman until he gives you a reason not to treat him as such, until the trade market opens up, and see what he does. So far, so good.
Sure. I mean, there's a little versatility there too. So like you can play third once in a while. You can always, stand there. You could always, you could always have him play first, or you could DH him and let Rayleigh play first and let Canzone play right. And you can kind of rotate those three guys. We didn't really get to talk about this all that much, but Rowdy Tellez DFA'd on Friday before that game. And he was one of like three guys that were like on the fence or on the bubble with Rayleigh coming back. And it was him, it was Solano for some reason, it was Canzone, and it was Mastroboni. And obviously they picked Rowdy, and there were a lot of people, I wouldn't say a majority though, based on what I saw, but there were a lot of people who were upset. And because, Rowdy's the only one hitting for power. Rowdy's been one of your better hitters, even though he hasn't been. And I just think it's funny that those three guys, the Solano, Mastroboni, and Canzone, I think they went a combined 15 for 24 this weekend. With like
Mastroboni clearly had a 3-hit day yesterday.
Yeah, stole a bag, scored a couple runs. Like Canzone hit some absolute nukes. It was just funny to see.
The one off of the scoreboard was crazy.
Yeah, I think I have 15 for 24 with 4 homers, a double, and 10 RBI for the three guys the Mariners chose over Rowdy. That accounted for a third of their offense. Those three guys. So
just real quick on the Rowdy thing. It's like, yes, he hit 11 home runs. Yes, he did have some big moments. And in general, that's a modest success for a guy that was signed as a minor leaguer with a spring training invite. Like any sort of contributions you can get out of someone like that, that's awesome, great. But he was hitting 208 with a 249 on base percentage on the year, and at home he was hitting 151 with a 192 on base percentage and a 50 WRC plus and 99 plate appearances. Like, cool that he's a clubhouse favorite, cool that he's a vibes guy, cool that he produced in some big moments and had the home runs and all that stuff. Great, but that's not a guy that you should be planning on keeping around for long.
No.
And so if you think Solano is starting to turn the corner, and that was unfortunately your big offseason acquisition, or one of them, then it doesn't really make a ton of sense for you to move on at that particular moment where you're starting to see him things start to finally click for him. And then with Canzone, I mean, yeah, he's a bit redundant with Rayleigh, but he's hot right now. And with how inconsistent this Mariners offense is, I mean, there's a lot of merit to just rolling with the hot hand.
Yeah. I mean, not for nothing, but Rowdy DFA'd. The waiver process takes 48 hours. Doesn't sound like anybody's claimed him. Otherwise, we probably would have known by now, which means either trade or release. There's a non-zero chance he ends up down in Tacoma and is there in case you need him. Anyways, but it was clearly the right move to make. And it's just nice to see that, the Mariners made the correct decision and they immediately got paid off for it. Like it immediately there was no like, oh, look at that. Guess you should have kept Rowdy. No. All three guys balled out. And that's nice because usually it doesn't go that way. And we're sitting here having a different conversation. Like, sometimes the best process doesn't yield the best results, guys. But we don't have to do that this time because the results speak for themselves.
All right, that is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez, Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.